Sonic the Hedgehog 3 speeds into theaters this weekend, so let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Let me know, what did you think about Sonic the Hedgehog 3? And give me that point of reference. What did you think about the previous two movies? What did you think about Knuckles, the series? And what's your experience with the video games? As for me, I'm of that age where I remember when the original Sonic the Hedgehog came out for the Sega Genesis. I didn't have a Sega Genesis, but I had friends who did, so it was always fun to go over to their house and get to play the game. I watched some of the animated shows from the 90s. There was actually two of them running at the same time, which was kind of weird. And then when they put out the new movies, they were such a pleasant surprise. The first trailer for the first one did not look great. And then by the time the movie came out, they got the characters right. The second one I thoroughly enjoyed. This is one of those franchises that my family watches all together. We have a lot of fun with it. I wasn't so crazy about Knuckles, but the movies I think have done a really good job. I was able to take my entire family to see the movie, and I asked them what they thought about it afterwards. So if you don't just want the thoughts of a man in his 40s about the film, but also want to know what the target audience thought about it, stick around to the end where they will share their thoughts. With all of that said, let's get started with the good. And no reason to beat around the bush. I felt like this movie had everything that I loved about the first two movies, minus the things I wasn't so crazy about, in particular, the focus on the human characters and human character subplots. The big negative I have about Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is that there's simply way too much time spent on this wedding subplot that has nothing to do with what you actually want out of a Sonic the Hedgehog movie, or in the case of the Knuckles series, way too much of it was about Wade's family and a bowling tournament and not nearly enough about Knuckles and all of the stuff surrounding him. And when it comes to Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the entire movie is about the Sonic adventure. Like, there's like a scene about the Donut Lord being bored, being back at home, not doing stuff, and then immediately we cut into action. When we use our human characters, they tie into the plot, they're used on a mission, and the only real human subplot in here is about the Robotnik family, which once again, of course, ties into the actual plotline. So there's no weddings, anything like that. This movie focuses in on what you want from a Sonic the Hedgehog movie. And in the case of this film, you got three people on Team Sonic, you got Shadow the Hedgehog, and you've got two Jim Carreys as two different Robotniks. And so it's all of the stuff that you want and none of the stuff that you don't want. Of course, when we go into Team Sonic from the very beginning, we've got our trio together with the banter, with the fun, the humor, the racing each other, the competitiveness. When we go into action, each of them gets to use their different skill sets, the speed, the flying, the muscle, all of it, and it gets into the action very quickly. It establishes where our characters are at, establishes the theme, and then something happens and we are off to our adventure. And so you're seeing the trio working together almost immediately. Of course, it's a lot of fun. Then you got Jim Carrey. He might be in his 60s now, but he is just as fun and energetic as he was in the 90s back when I was in middle school. A full generation has passed, and now my middle school son is watching Jim Carrey in one of the movies he's most excited for, which was the same thing that happened with me when Dumb and Dumber and The Mask, all these movies came out when I was in middle school. And Jim Carrey has still got it. And in the case of this movie, he's playing two different Robotniks, and it's just fun. He's so good at physical comedy, and it's physical comedy that fits this franchise and these characters so well. But the other nice thing about Robotnik in this movie is that there's more of an actual kind of arc here. Not that they take him away from the cartoonish, exaggerated personality that he has, but they give him just a little bit more humanity. There's a little bit more emotion and an arc there, and there's a backstory about the family. There's ways that tie into the plot, and there's just choices made all along the way that you kind of go, they did something more with Robotnik other than having him twirl his gigantic, beautiful mustache while working with his grandfather. There's more to it than just that, and I appreciated that about the film, that they gave him some character growth and change in the film. Now, of course, the other one you got to talk about in here is Shadow the Hedgehog, a fan favorite. Shadow is not from my era of Sonic the Hedgehog video games. I mean, I played Sonic 1, Sonic 2, and then Sonic and Knuckles. And so that's the trio that I know really well. And so Shadow's a newer character. I don't know the video game lore there at all. But as soon as you have another hedgehog that looks cool and is voiced by Keanu Reeves, I'm all in. I'm sold. Let's do this. Looks amazing. But so the thing that's cool about Shadow is that pretty much of all the characters in this, now the 4 elements, 3 movies, 1 TV show, Shadow is the only character that's not at all a comic relief character. Shadow is entirely serious, where Knuckles had his motivation that was intense, but he was always a comic relief character at the exact same time. Shadow is just a tragic character, and so it brings a little bit more of a weight to the story that has a somberness to it. The movie's still fun, all the jokes, the action, the silly, it's all there, but it adds in this other emotion into the film that I think elevates things just a little bit, and it makes Shadow cut through, because when someone's not cracking jokes, when they're not the butt end of a joke, they're just a serious villain with a tragic motivation, you take it more seriously. It has more emotional weight for the obvious reasons. There is this backstory there that I want to go into because I don't want to spoil things, obviously. Some of it's a little bit in the trailer. But, like, there's a character that is broken. And they use this kind of thematically in the film where you don't normally think Sonic the Hedgehog movies, wow, that movie had deep themes in it. It's not deep themes, but there's something there being explored that has emotional resonance to it, a humanity to it, and they use these 2 hedgehogs and their reactions to stimuli and events to explore ideas. And once again, it's everything you liked in the previous ones. It's all still there. It just sprinkles in a little bit more emotion, a little bit more weight to it. Today's video is sponsored by Factor. Notice how the days are getting shorter, but your to-do list isn't? Let Factor help you be more efficient. They take shopping, prepping, cooking, and cleaning off your daily list of things to do. Stay energized with America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service. Because Factor's meals are chef-prepared and dietitian-approved, you're going to love not only how Factor's meals taste, but also how they support your goals. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. For me, I either go for keto or protein plus because I'm a low carb, high protein kind of guy. Factor has covered you with 35 different delicious meals every week, over 60 additional convenience options you can add to your box, like keto cookies, pressed juices, and smoothies. And here's a big one in the month of December. Factor is cheaper than dining out or takeout. Head to factormeals.com/50SeanChandler and use code 50SeanChandler to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code 50SeanChandler at factormeals.com/50SeanChandler to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping while your subscription is active. And the other thing, kind of along these same lines, is of these movies, this is the one that by far has the biggest stakes. That you get into the third act and it's bigger than ever. The threat is bigger. The sequences are bigger. And of course you even have more characters, more Robotniks, more everything. And so it just crescendos really nicely. Where, the first one had a big exciting finale, and then we add a big gigantic Robotnik in the second one. And this one takes it even to that other level with all these other ingredients kind of playing into it. So just, once again, it's a sequel done right, that it builds off the previous movies. It learns from the mistakes of the last 2 movies and minimizes the negatives, amplifies the positives, and keeps kind of adding new things in there where we got a great villain, we got 2 of the previous great villain, and our Sonic team is bigger than ever, and the human characters, they're sprinkled in there, they get their moments, but they're in there just enough that it's like, oh, that was fun. Not, man, when are we going to get back to Sonic? Really? This much about a wedding and Bridezilla? What on earth are we doing? No. Just a little bit. So you appreciate seeing certain characters again, and then we move on to the next thing. So, and it builds out the lore a little bit more too. Just don't want to go into that too much, but it just builds out the lore with the backstory, with the characters and secret organizations. Everything I enjoyed about the previous two films, it's here. But it fixed the mistakes, and it built on top of it to be even better. Few more things to talk about here. Let's move on to the mixed aspects of the film. And this isn't a good or bad. This is just one of those questions that people always ask about movies like this. Does Sonic the Hedgehog 3 have a mid or post-credit scene? And is it worth sticking around for? Yes, it has both, and they are both worth sticking around for. The mid-credit scene is a full sequence that teases what's coming next if we get Sonic the Hedgehog 4, and it looks very much like they want to give us a Sonic the Hedgehog 4. So there's all sorts of references to video game things, teases, heroes, villains, where things might be going. So I imagine, in particular, if you're like a Sonic the Hedgehog fanatic, you absolutely want to stick around for the mid-credit scene. Then there is a post-credit scene after all of the credits run. It's shorter, but once again, it kind of closes out a lingering plot thread and answers a question. Not real short, simple, but absolutely one that it is important to stick around and see. From there, let's move on to the bad. And generally speaking, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, so I don't have a whole lot to say here. Just a few things that hold it back just a little bit. One of them is that some of the secret organization stuff, the gun stuff, kind of felt a little bit underdeveloped. Like, we introduce a bunch of ideas about the history there and factions within the organization, but then it felt like the movie realized it was more important to focus in on the Robotniks and Team Sonic. And so then we kind of left that behind. In particular, like the Kristen Ritter character, I was very excited to see her in the film. And so it was kind of fun to see her, but then she really only gets one scene where there's any fun to be had. It's because she's playing off of Jim Carrey in a sequence with some physical comedy. It was like, oh, that was fun. But for the most part, it's just kind of her walking into rooms, being serious, and having exposition to deliver. It feels like maybe there was originally something more there, or her character had a payoff later on in the film, or something like that. Maybe there was a human subplot that was cut out. But it felt like we started heading down a path, and then it like cut off. And in particular, because it is the secret organization, it's not a wedding, I wouldn't mind learning more about that side of a human subplot, not a disconnected wedding subplot. So that I felt underdeveloped. Some of the comedy felt we went a little bit too much with the broad, silly physical comedy and dancing and things like that. It was like, maybe we could have used a little bit more wit in some of these rather than just going for the silliness. So that, not a big issue, but something was like, I did notice that, okay, we're really spending a long time on this bit right here. And we're doing the Robotnik licks the fur bit and does that thing a little bit too many times. We've done that joke before and we're still doing it. So there's a little bit of that. Honestly, otherwise, the movie kind of gave me what I wanted. Or maybe I said that it gets into the action really quickly. Maybe it moves a little bit too quickly through its plot. There's a lot in there and it moves very quickly, which I guess you want in a Sonic movie to move fast. But other than that, the movie delivered what I wanted. I went in excited and I got what I wanted out of this film. I wasn't expecting it to be like A+, one of the greatest movies of all time. I was just expecting a great time at the movies with my family, that I can watch it without being nervous about the jokes or getting too dark, and it delivered everything that I wanted. In fact, here's what my kids had to say about it. So we just got out of the theater from watching Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
Shadow!
This is one we were all very excited to check out. What'd you think about the film?
It was funny. It was good. The best out of the three.
Karis, what'd you think about the movie?
I liked it, and I really liked it, when Shadow and Boiler, and also that Boiler touched the Boiler. It was really cool. And also, I liked how Boiler looked when he touched the Boiler. looked it cool and pretty.
Was there anything you liked earlier in the movie that maybe isn't a spoiler?
I like how they boiled in the beginning.
Young critic, what did you think about the film?
I thought the movie was fun and interesting. It had a bunch of jokes in there. There was some backstory and lore to it. Overall, it was a good movie. There's lots of teaming up stuff. It was a bit sad, though.
So, all three of us had a good time with it?
Yeah!
Go see it this weekend. Real quick, before I give you my final thoughts, remember to join me down below in the comment section. Let me know, what did you think about Sonic the Hedgehog 3? And give me that point of reference. What did you think about the previous movies, your experience with the video game characters? Do you love Shadow the Hedgehog, so that's what you're excited for? Did it deliver on all that fun stuff? Let me know all about it. Also, I'm going to be ranking all of the Sonic movies with Knuckles this weekend. And if you want to check out a video where I talked about a bunch of video game movies, the highest grossing video game movies of all time, and ranked them, check that out somewhere around here. For me, I got everything that I wanted out of Sonic the Hedgehog 3. It delivered all of the fun that I wanted and expected based off the previous two films, and it diminished the things that I don't think worked all that great in those movies, while adding some lore, a great new villain, and adding some emotional depth and a little exploration of themes in here. When you put it all together, this might just be my favorite of the Sonic movies. Overall, it's an A- on the entertainment scale and 8.5 out of 10. And go see this in the theater with your entire family. It's a good time at the movies for all ages. It is a little bit darker because of Shadow the Hedgehog's plotline, so just keep that in mind with some younger kids. But my 6-year-old was fine with the movie. In fact, when it ended, she turned to us and she goes, "Mom, can I watch that movie again? I can't wait until Sonic the Hedgehog 4 comes out. When does Sonic the Hedgehog 4 comes out?" Like, Karis, we're still in the theater for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and it hasn't even come out yet. And she's that excited for the next one. And so it really is for all ages. It's a good time at the movies. Check it out. Check out these other videos around here, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.